Hi! Okay, so I did say exactly a year ago that I'll be doing this regularly, but let's say that I still don't understand what responsibility is. Sorry! I really want to get into this, so let's start over. Okay, so as I said in my last video, my next vlogs are going to be film or TV oriented. Let's say visual media, visual art oriented. So to start this 2018 easy, I know we're 3 months in, but shush. We will discuss something that is not too ambitious, the adaptation of not one, not two, but 3 French classical novels into films. That was smooth. I will be talking about my favorite period in French lit, meaning mid-18th century to 20th century. It's mainly going to be my personal opinion about these films, but obviously, let's agree to disagree. This is an open discussion and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it after. So, as I'm dealing with a very vast period, I mean, we're talking about a century and a half long period, I'll be breaking down this video in 3 parts, 3 novels, 3 films, according to 3 literary movements: the Age of Enlightenment, realism, and naturalism. So sorry that I will have to deal with these 2 movements together because they are very different. They seem the same, but they're very different, and I'm feeling Balzac and Zola stirring in the graves right now. I apologize. And last but not least, a very specific branch of the Surrealist movement. We'll get into that later. Warning to all my LFIP classmates, you'll find some serious nostalgia in this video. I have to admit it, I may have not liked the books at the time. But then again, you can say that about any book, you know, there's a thing of having to read a book that just makes it tedious. But I have to be honest, after each study, I got to understand and appreciate more the things that I was reading. So it's a win-win situation. It's annoying that you have to read them, but at the same time they open up crazy worlds. I mean, wow. And yeah, so that made me fall in love with the story, fall in love with the writing. There is something about French lit that is incredible. Fall in love with the characters, the stories, anyway. Just mad love for it. So, first book slash film that we are going to talk about is, drumroll, Candide ou l'Optimiste by Voltaire. For a little French accent while you're at it. This book is crazy and weirdly sweet. Written in 1759, if I'm correct, by Voltaire, father of Les Philosophes des Lumières. This book basically was one of the holy books of the Age of Enlightenment. So this philosophical movement, this philosophical era, which favored individual freedom and religious tolerance in a time when everything was pretty much dictated and ordered by the king or the state religion. It was a time which favored truth and science. A lot of scientific discoveries were made at this time. It was basically a time of killing ignorance and bringing people out of the darkness, hence the term enlightenment. Which is, funnily enough, something that we need today. Very desperately. Anywho, Candide is written in such a satirical way that it's just impossible not to laugh at the main character's naivety? Naivety. So following a sort of comedic Bildungsroman kind of path. It's a sort of coming of age book, let's face it. We follow the story of Candide, a young Westphalian orphan who goes through absolute hell. Honestly, like, and long story short, his disillusionment of the world, like seeing the world as it is. He is accompanied by his mentor, Pangloss, who is the embodiment of perfect optimism. Like really, you know, the hardcore optimism, the type of person who likes to wake up on a Monday, who starts speaking in a lecture at 9 a.m., the type of person who would be able even to justify the casting of Tom Cruise in the new Mummy series. That kind of optimism. I am not turning into Gollum. Anyway, after going through hell and back, Candide and Pangloss make it to Constantinople, which is basically paradise. It's like it's paradise on earth. It's Eden. Life is amazing, and the novella ends on a beautiful poetic note. I shall narrate. Pangloss disait quelques fois à Candide. Tous les événements sont enchaînés dans le meilleur des mondes possibles. Car enfin, si vous n'aviez pas chassé d'un beau château à grands coups de pied dans le derrière pour l'amour de mademoiselle Cunégonde, si vous n'aviez pas été mis à l'inquisition, si vous n'aviez pas couru l'Amérique à pied, si vous n'aviez pas donné un bon coup d'épée au baron, si vous n'aviez pas perdu tous vos moutons du bon pays d'Eldorado, vous ne mangeriez pas ici des cédrats confits, des pistaches. Cela est bien dit, répondit Candide. Mais il faut cultiver notre jardin. Thank you. Basically, in this excerpt, Pangloss is justifying their journey, right? So it's like, it's, you know what, everything happens for the best. So if you didn't go through this, and that, you wouldn't have this Eden right now. And to that, Candide replies, well said, like, fair point, but il faut cultiver notre jardin. Il faut cultiver notre jardin. We must cultivate our garden. So our garden being ourselves, our inner personas. It basically means to look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. This concept is basically the perfect balance between optimism and pessimism. Let's talk cinema now. This story actually has mainly been adapted to the stage. Even Bernstein wrote an operetta for it. But, my friends, there is one little cinematic gem. The 1960 adaptation. I swear to God, by Carbonneau. Candide ou l'optimiste au XXe siècle. It's amazing. It's in black and white, and I am a sucker for black and white films. And so, as the title suggests, the filmmaker basically adapted the novella to the 20th century in the context of the Second World War. I personally think it's a very smart adaptation. I think you can go on YouTube and check it out. The film skillfully adapts Voltaire's sarcasm and irony and adds something more to it. So there are like fourth wall breaks, voiceovers, just basically all the cinematic tools used for a sort of confession to the audience. And let's face it, this thing of having a direct dialogue with the audience is basically what Voltaire wanted anyway. So I'm basically giving it 100% for essence keeping. Absolutely. Book number 2. Bel-Ami by Guy de Maupassant. Bel-Ami is the sort of started from the bottom, now we hear it kind of story. It talks about the dirty, very dirty, social elevation of Georges Duroy, who later in the book changes his name to Baron Georges Duroy de Cantel because that shit is 10 times classier. So basically it's the story of a penniless scoundrel who, after joining the military after the war, so I think should be Napoleonic Wars, becomes the head of a very famous newspaper by sleeping with a hella lot of women. And all the right women, if you know what I mean. This novel is why we will talk about not one, but two very important French literary movements. Bel-Ami can quickly be considered as a realist novel. There is no doubt about that. It perfectly describes the society back at the time. It depicts all the different social classes at the time. It's very focused on class. However, saying that Bel-Ami is only realist really narrows its understanding because a lot of themes regarding naturalism are featured in the book. To sum up, naturalism is this concept developed by the one and only Émile Zola, and it's basically this concept of being born with a predestined life. So basically, your social status defines who you are. There's no way out of your social situation. So you can obviously link this major theme to the story of Georges Duroy because basically he elevates his status like crazy, but deep down he stays the penniless scoundrel that he was at the beginning. This book really leaves you with mixed feelings because at the end of the day, it's the bad guy that wins. It's this egotistic asshole that gets everything that he wants, hurting all the people around him while he does that. It really shows you how human beings can be despicable, man. And this guy wrote this book in the 18th century, so it's something that is rooted deep down human nature, and I found that, wow, it's just incredible. Plus, I really enjoyed this book because it deals with a lot of taboo subjects at the time. And most importantly, he managed to make vile acts, because let's face it, sleeping your way to the top is not very virtuous now, is it? Seem delicious, almost alluring, you know? You're curious. There is that little voyeuristic kind of element into it, and you're just like drawn into this insane, psychologically insane world, and you're like, oh my god, I love this crap. My love for the story aside, we gotta talk about film. In my opinion, Bel Ami still didn't get a good film adaptation, which is crazy because it had loads of adaptations. According to Wikipedia, yes, an excellent and reliable source for information, Unilife. The book has been adapted to the big screen 10 times, and the last one was the one starring Robert Pattinson, made in 2012, and it was just The film is basically an hour and 40 minutes-ish of displaying how attractive Robert Pattinson is, apparently. I honestly don't think it dealt well with the main character's deep desire of status. I mean, it was so focused on the physical way of obtaining power rather than the meticulous psychological planning. And it's a major shame. And don't get me started on the editing. It is so bad. Like, one thing randomly happens right after the other, and you're just like, you watch the film and you don't know what's happening. I mean, this brings us back to this long discussion about novels getting adapted into cinema, because I mean, it's really hard to adapt a classical novel to fit 350 to 500 pages into 2 hours of film. That is just crazy. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible. There are so many novels that have been brilliantly adapted. I mean, the list is infinite. So why can't we do this for Bel Ami, goddammit? Let's say that Georges Duras' main problem is that he is stuck, and it's unbearable for him. His social status, it's almost claustrophobic for him. He's psychologically suffering because of his situation. It's pathological. So if you randomly edit stuff, rush things, nobody's gonna understand this. One may argue that it would be better to make a TV adaptation, so like an entire series of it, like they did for War and Peace. But you know what? There must be a way. I think one of the most amazing things about cinema is precisely the fact that you get to transpose stories. So honestly, I'm just waiting to see a marvelous Bel Ami adaptation. And who knows, maybe one day I'll have the guts to tackle it. Last but not least, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to gush about it because it's a real personal favorite. Drumroll. L'étranger. The Stranger by the one and only Albert Camus. Albert Camus, this incredible man who died far too young. This book is very short, a little bit longer than a novella. It basically follows the development of Camus' philosophy of the absurd. Brainiac Yemi coming at you live. Now, what is absurdism? Absurdism is this philosophy, this school of thought, which basically points out, as its name suggests, how absurd and meaningless life is. But, very important, it doesn't deal with it in a depressing manner. It's more in a take life as it is kind of way. Grasp it, don't think too much about it, don't try to explain everything that you see. So it's very important to also understand the historical context. So this movement was born in Europe in the 20th century, right after the Second World War. So yeah, you can pretty understand where it's coming from. It's almost sort of an escape of this crazy, illogical, meaningless, absurd world. So Camus and Kierkegaard before him developed 3 ways of escaping this world. Numero uno, suicide. Obviously, you are taking your life away, but the very act of taking your life away, so basically annihilating yourself and annihilating the world around you, makes you a very active member of this absurd world. It's like, at the end of the day, you are not running away from it, you're only joining it. In other words, if this world around you is already crazy, why do something that is even crazier, meaning taking this crazy life away? I hope you understand what I mean. The second way of escaping this world, religion. Now, why does religion help you escape? It gives you hope. Faith is something extremely powerful, and it manages to place the meaning of life in the afterlife. Just think about it. Think of the importance, just how important the afterlife is in any religion. But this way was completely discarded by Camus. He actually called it philosophical suicide. Third, and the best way of living in this crazy world, is the revolt. I may have done a Frenchism right there. La révolte, which is basically you accept the craziness of this crazy world. It's a process of a person who has a sudden realization of how crazy this world is. It's all about sudden realization. To continue with Camus' analogy, it's the myth of Sisyphus, right? So he is punished by the gods, and he has to roll this gigantic rock to the top of a hill, and the rock obviously rolls down, and that's basically what he has to do for all his life. Bring the rock back up, it rolls down, he goes down. Bring it back, it goes down, he goes down. Bring it back, and basically that's his life. Up and down, up and down, up and down. The revolt is when Sisyphus accept the fact that, you know what, this is my life, might as well. All in all, absurdism is basically finding your inner peace and ultimate elevation in a world full of crap. Anywho, back to cinema. As hard as the topic is, it almost seems normal that there's only been one adaptation made of the novel, and it's the 1967 Luchino Visconti version with the one and only Marcello Mastroianni. Okay, wait, Marcello Mastroianni appreciation time. But for as much as I love the director and the actor, this adaptation does not make justice to the book. It's really weird and almost hard to describe because Visconti gave it some sort of epic aura, which at the end of the day the book does not have. It's arguable, especially with Meursault's last monologue, which mirrors his Révolte. But the main and, in my opinion, biggest mistake that this adaptation did is the omission of Meursault's inner thoughts. Yes, the book was written in first person. It shamelessly exposed Meursault's thoughts, and it's specifically thanks to this first person narrative that the reader / audience, if we're going to talk about adaptations, manages to grasp Meursault's complete indifference and apathy. Maman est morte aujourd'hui. I mean, that's how the book starts. It's the opening line, and you already feel that the guy just... Do you feel? That's the question that you want to ask him. Do you feel anything? And on top of that, this adaptation somehow shows Meursault as being part of the system, which he most definitely isn't in the book. He doesn't participate. He doesn't want to participate. I mean, for as long as I understood the book. At the end of the day, he has a presence, of course, but he doesn't have a voice. Meursault in the film somehow doesn't question what he's going through. He's almost like a collaborator of the system, and that's just a major shame. Don't get me wrong, the film is beautiful. Visconti is a master in that. It's just aesthetically and visually pleasing. But again, the essence. The essence of the book is missing. And I would like to finish this video on this note and emphasize on how important the book's essence is for a cinematic adaptation. If you manage to put the essence of a book in your film, then no matter what happens, it's just gonna be a perfect adaptation. Please get the essence right. So thank you for watching. As I said in the beginning, this is an open discussion, so I would love to hear your thoughts, and I hope to see you soon.